My name is Craig Rainey. They call me the Renaissance Man. Welcome to my podcast. What do you say we get started? That's a really good idea. I appreciate y'all taking the moment to spend a little bit of time with me here on the Renaissance Man podcast. It's a beautiful day here in Austin, Texas. Before we get started, I just wanted to encourage you to follow us, hit the like button. It's really easy, fun to do. I do it all the time. But join up with us. And the best way to do that is, for those few of you out there who haven't read any of my books yet, shame on you, I'd like to offer you the opportunity to have one of my, it's a good book too. It's not one of these things where I wrote a pamphlet, enjoy this. I want you to have one of my novels for free. And again, for those of you who don't know, I author an action thriller series, a crime drama entitled the Carson Brand series, and it's kind of like a Jack Reacher, Jack Ryan, all the other Jacks that are out there, hero guy. Anyway, my first album, the pilot novel, which came out 2 years ago, is entitled Stolen Valor. And for those of you who are not military buffs, it is not military related. When you read the book, you go, oh, so that's why I call it that. But I'd like to encourage you to go get that book for free, and this is how you do it. Go ahead and get on your web browser and type in stolenvalornovel.com. And it'll take you to one of my websites. It's the landing page for the novel. And there is a catch, but it doesn't cost you anything, and it won't put you on a spam list. And those are the two things that I always worry about when I give people my email. But what you'll do is you will sign up and subscribe to be part of my readers list and my readers family. That is, and I'm going to make two pledges to you at this point. When you join that, number one, I will not spam you. I'm not going to send you a bunch of junk mail trying to sell you my swag and my stuff. I really don't have any swag and stuff. I have books, and they're readily available anywhere you want. Anywhere you find books, you'll find my novels. But I will also not sell your information to a third party to anybody else. No small print, no fine print in that. I just don't think that that's the way you treat family and friends. And my good people, when you take the time to join my reader family, and which says, Craig, I like you. I'm willing to be a part of this thing. I'm willing to, check out your books and see if they're worth reading. I'm not going to violate that trust by spamming you, as I mentioned before, or selling you information. The only time that you'll hear from me is if I have a new book coming out, I'll send you a note, and I do these myself. I don't have a staff that does this. I have a staff that does other things, but they don't do this. I keystroke every single one of my emails that I send out. If you, pardon me, if you leave a comment on one of my podcasts, or if you leave a comment on one of my blogs, I will answer you directly. And it's not that I'm such a big celebrity or a big deal. It's just that I think that today it's a lost art to have that little bit of courtesy to reply, to do it yourself. And a lot of people, they hire PR firms, and they hire interns or whomever else to do that. And I just don't think that's the way to do it. I think it's a little disingenuous. I am not up to 1 million fans yet. I think I'm headed that way, but even then I'll make an effort to make sure that I answer my emails and reply to those comments and that kind of thing. But I encourage you to do that. But once you log on to stolenvalornovel.com, then you'll just go through it. They will send you a link to make sure that you're not a robot. You click that link, and you will have access to whichever version of the digital copy of Stolen Valor you want. Apple, MOB, EPUB, any of that, they're all there. PDF, you can even get it on PDF if you're an old guy like me, and that's what you do. But anyway, I encourage you to do that. And if you want to find out a little bit more about who Craig Rainey is, my website is craigrainey.com. And if you just Google Craig Rainey, I'm everywhere. Google and I are having a little bit of a fight that they don't put all my sites up, my IMDb and everything else. But if you get on any other search engine, they will. I don't know. They may be your friend, and they'll pull stuff up. But anywhere you Google Craig Rainey, you'll find me. Also, if you want to contact me directly, my email is craig@craigraney.com. And it's, like I said, I'm very easy to find, not hard to find me. But anyway, the subject of the episode today has to do with something I spoke with you about on my last episode. And that was that once I completed the Reasonable Sin novel, which is the third novel in the Carson Brand series, that I immediately started on the next one. And the title of this one is Sovereign Rule. And when you, again, I'm a two-word title guy. That's what I like to do. I think it keeps things snappy, and I think it really falls in line with the tempo of the book and the pace of the subject matter. And I'm hoping it does that. But anyway, I am your typical novel. Well, my typical novel. Let me say this, but a typical novel that most people write, and that I'm writing, is about 100,000 words, give or take. And I completed Reasonable Sin sometime in, I'm going to say August sometime. In fact, I can look and tell you. I've got it here in front of me. What date was that? Oh, August 16th is when it shows that it went live on Amazon. So in that time, I have started the next novel, and it's just because I've got the flow going right now. And one of the things that I talked about a couple episodes ago is that, it's tough to balance busy schedule, life, and everything else along with your writing, and it's tough to do. And I don't succeed all the time, but I believe I succeed more than I fail. But anyway, good news. I am 36,000 words into the fourth novel in the Carson Brand series. So I think that amazingly, by the end of the year, I'll probably have that book in print, and it's going pretty quickly. So I'm hoping by the end of November I've got the original manuscript done, and then at that point go into editing. And I haven't even started the artwork, which I think those of you who know my process know that typically I have the easy for me to say, artwork ready to go before I actually jump in and write the book. I'm one of those format guys. I do try to outline to an extent. Outlining, I think, is a bit more formal than what I do. I have ideas and I write them down, and and I make notes, and I do have a chart showing how this is going to happen, that's going to happen. I want to make sure that there is a subplot that goes through and where I'm going to enter it, when I'm going to enter that into the story and how that's going to go and this kind of thing. And so my process is not quite as regimented as some, probably more regimented than others based on a few of those books that I've read from some of the indie authors out there. But anyway, this book went from just an idea to, I think it's going to go this way, to formatting and being 36,000 words in. I wrote 4,000 words of it yesterday. And for those of you who aren't familiar with author vernacular, when you talk about word count, that's a really slippery slope. Anybody who has a publisher who goes through traditional publishing, and I don't, as I've mentioned before, I'm open to a hybrid thing, but I really like the control and the artistic license that I get by being my own man, because a lot of what I write, especially when I first started, a lot of what I wrote then and a lot of what I'm writing now, I could get some pushback on it because it's particularly the Carson Brand series, and I've got some other books that I've written, but the Carson Brand series, I think it's kind of groundbreaking, and that's, I really risk sounding like a pompous ass on that, but that's not what it is. When I say groundbreaking, I am a fan of spy espionage novels. I go way back to Warren Murphy and Richard Sapphire when they were doing the Destroyer series, and I will still read them every now and then. But you take Jack Ryan, Clancy. I enjoy Clancy. What I'm saying is I'm a true action thriller fan. I love spy novels. I'm a James Bond fan. Who isn't, right? You don't have to be a fan of the genre to know that. But the thing is, with every one of these super guys, these great spy guys, there's a formula that's followed. And let me discuss that in more detail later. I want to talk about word count as we're talking about, and the thing about word count. How should I put it? word count can get you in trouble. And when I say that, because it's funny, it cuts two ways. And I've mentioned this a couple of times, and I know that amongst you readers, you have heard this. I feel like my audience is pretty sophisticated when it comes to this sort of thing, and I think that the reason that they pay attention to my podcast and read my blogs is because many of you are devout readers and ardent readers, and whatever other adjective we can use about being a reader, and I'm one of you. And the problem that I have with word count is when you're traditionally published, there's a lot of there's a lot of emphasis that is placed on word count. People like to buy a thick book, and they want to feel like they're getting the most bang for their buck. And I think that's okay. I think that's one way to judge the quality of the investment you're making in your literary pursuits and in your books and everything else. But I really think that I think it is more incumbent upon the author to create better content than to create wordy content. I'll give you an example. I read a book recently written by a very, very well-known, very successful, very popular author, very mainstream. And if I mention his name, you go, oh, yeah, I know who that is. And this author is known for writing this particular genre. And I'm not going to say anything because I'll tell you this, in the writing business, dare you not cast mud. It is very difficult to do. And those who reach the upper echelons and the pinnacle, it's really easy for a guy like me who's a nobody. And I mean, I've got 20,000 plus copies of my book sold to date over the past 3 years. That's remarkable for considering that I don't have anybody helping me out. But it's not 20 million, which is what this author has probably published and sold. So this person, no matter what I say about the writing, still is aces in my book. And that's the reason I read this author, is because I do enjoy him, and I like to align myself and affiliate with myself with those who are successful, and maybe that'll rub off in the osmosis part of our world. One, I'll bring one up that I'm not a fan of, and I'll just say his name is James Patterson. I think that his early novels were remarkable. He was writing them. He was doing the hard work, and it was great. But it's my belief, and I don't have proof of this, but as somebody who writes every day, I don't think that this guy is penning 2 or 3 novels a year and putting them out there. I think what happens is a guy like Craig Rainey goes and puts a book together and offers James Patterson however many dollars it takes to put his name on there, and it says, well, James Patterson and Craig Rainey. And I think it's a little disingenuous. And the reason I mention that is because this particular author that I read, wildly successful, the book was a dud. It was a dog, and it was written because I think this author needs to continue to put books out there and needs to continue to be prolific. And I think that when you're concerned and prolific is word count. You want to make sure you got 100,000 words, so that's a bona fide novel. That's word count. And like I said, I think that's one of the criteria, is the word count of the book has to be there, but it is definitely not the most important thing. I mean, you have to have artwork on your covers too, and you have to have reviews. You have to have those things, but that doesn't mean that that's what it takes to make the book enjoyable and to serve your audience. Let me put it that way. I don't think that those things are what it takes to serve the audience. The cover of the book, word count, those are going to get those folks that don't read you. If you're an author and people are not reading you, if you come out with a book that's either thin or it's let's say it's got large type on it, because you're trying to get those fonts big enough where it makes more pages, that's going to come across, and that's going to be something that as an author, you're going to want to avoid. You want to make sure there is value in your novel to what you get. But anyway, in this particular one, I guess this book was probably 430 pages, something of that nature. So I would guess 130, 140,000 words, something like that. But man, there was so much fluff to it, and there was so much loitering in one place and spending so much time with one area. I was just like, well, okay, I get it. I mean, we're talking about We're talking about a house, and if I'm writing about a house and describing it, I don't think anybody here needs to know what the pitch of the roof was, or what kind of windows were in it, or what color the carpet is, unless there's some blood on it. You got to describe that. Oh, there's red blood on the white carpet or something. But I mean, it was really a lot of time was spent in this book on descriptive prose, just a lot of exposition, and I like the writer to get down to it. Let's get going. I mean, for me, if what I write does not drive the plot, it doesn't make it past the editing. It sits on the editing room floor. I mean, it's not going to make it to the book, because I think that your book has to have some snap. I think it's got to have some pace to it. Now, there are times where you've got to change that tempo or that pace depending on what you're writing. The book I'm writing right now is completely different than the other three books as far as the setting and the circumstances and what's going on. And so it's slowed down just a little bit. But by slowing down, it's kind of like the difference between slowing down. You're in the fast lane on the freeway, and you slow down to 40, 50 miles an hour, and you're annoying the drivers around you, call it readers, and slowing down to smell the flowers. And that's something that you should do. And I find that a lot of authors will slow down to 40 or 50 miles an hour on the freeway just so they spend a little bit more time on the freeway. And I don't think we need to do that. Now, again, everybody's got their own opinion. Everybody's got what works. Most of these authors that I'm reading and talking to, they're published. There is somebody with a lot of money and a lot of influence and a lot of sway who believes in them and who has invested their time, influence, and sway into them. So, I mean, that's to be said. I can't say that. I can't say, well, I got a publisher that thinks I walk on water, and they're drinking at the Craig Rainey Fountain of Youth, and that's not what's happening. I mean, I'm read. I'm being taken seriously, but so the reason I'm saying that is when I make these comments have to do with you and me. We're just talking about this. I'm not going to disparage those who are successful, because I think that I think it's tacky. I don't think you do that. But, Patterson, I went right for him. Sorry, that's the way it goes. But anyway, so with this new book that I'm writing, I jumped in, and when I talk about word count, 36,000 words, for me, that has to do with how engaged I am with the story. It has to do with how much junk is pouring out of my head onto the page, and that's what's really happening here. And I wanted to bring up Sovereign Rule, my next book, because I'm really excited where I'm going with it. I'm breaking new ground. In the other three books, it's a lot of I don't know. It's a lot of spy guy fare, and it's that kind of thing. And going back to what I was talking about, I don't want to leave that unsaid. The reason I say that I'm breaking some ground here is this. You take, and I'm just going to use a couple of my favorites. Let's take the Destroyer series, Remo Williams. Okay, Remo Williams was an ex-New York City cop. He was executed for a murder he didn't commit, but it was all staged. And so he woke up after his execution, and he was trained to be this super martial arts guy under the master of Sinanju. And it's a great series. I loved it, and I was younger, and I've outgrown a little bit of it. But those two guys, Warren Murphy, Richard Sapir, when they were writing it, wow. I mean, wow. The tempo, I think in a lot of ways you'll see some of their stylization with me. You can't help it. When I was a pro drummer, you will hear some Ginger Baker. You're going to hear some Neil Peart. You're going to hear some of these different drummers that inspired me in my drumming. And the same thing with my writing. You're going to see a little Max Brand. You're going to, I guess, see a little Warren Murphy, Richard Sapir in there. I think that you'll do that. But the one thing that, and going back to my favorites, okay, so the New York City cop is Remo Williams. When you look at Jack Reacher, I love Jack Reacher. I think it's a fun series, and he's great. And by the way, that I think it's on Amazon or Netflix, that series. You should binge it. That right there, if you read the book, that big hunk of man right there, that is Jack Reacher in the book. It was very well done. My wife and I enjoyed it. I don't know if there was one or two seasons, but we watched it. And if it comes back on, we'll watch more. But Jack Reacher, former military policeman. He gets out of the military, and he travels around. No matter where he goes, he finds something that a former super trooper can do, and this kind of thing. So it's, so again, Super Trooper. You have a former cop, former super guy, MP. And then you take Jack Ryan, Clancy's guy. Jack Ryan, former Marine. He, he's I don't know, CIA, DOJ. He's an operative. This is what he does. So another super guy with a lot of training, everything else. And I could bring up several more. My guy, Carson Brand, is not a super trooper. He is not a guy that came from extensive special operator military background. And it's funny because one of my first reviews that I got on Stolen Valor was, what, some guy that was part-time soldier and he's supposed to be kicking everybody's butt? And yeah, right. And this is from a guy who admittedly was prior service. And I went to that on purpose. And if you just take what I just said at face value, and I hope you don't, you're going to go, what's the point? The point is this. I think that there's greatness in all people, and it's just waiting for that catalyst to bring it out. And there are many lives that are spent without that catalyst ever being presented or acted upon. In the case of Carson Brand is he's a tough guy anyway. He's a blue collar guy. He's from San Antonio, Texas, and he worked in the heat and everything else. And he's just come up, but as he's come up through life, he's had to be kind of a tough guy. He's got a short temper. He might drink a little too much bourbon. You can judge that whenever you read it. But the thing is, he's been in a lot of fights, but he has been extraordinarily successful in those fights. And he's a guy that has fought, 6'5", 6'6" tough guys and prevailed. So anyway, through his journey in life and in my series of books that I'm writing, he finds himself in, I'm not going to say, remarkable is one word for it, but a lot of times tragic. But his life journey, the path of his life and the road of his life has really taken an interesting turn, and it wasn't him that caused it. He just ended up that way because a friend of his, and they've been friends since childhood, this friend of his got it, went the wrong way, and Carson Brand, which everybody calls him Brand, he went with him one time, and all of a sudden he found himself embroiled in this struggle, and the struggle continues today into the fourth book. And so I wanted to have somebody that wasn't quite as formulaic as the Jacks and the James Bonds, and I wanted to have somebody that with a certain skill set and a certain amount of physical ability. I think that there are a lot of people, when put in an extraordinary situation, could react extraordinarily. And when I write, I try to serve my reader by saying, well, this is the way it happened, and this is why this went there. And this character had the core values, and he had the core abilities to act upon this. Not everybody could do it. Not everybody can be an NBA basketball player. Not everybody can be a pro golfer. There are some innate talents and abilities and things that must be present in you as a person to be those things. And Carson Brand is no different. So anyway, that's where I went with that. I decided to make an action hero that was more of an everyman. And I really believe that if you read it and you go, okay, and I've had a lot of people, they tell me, man, I'm absolutely there. I can't wait for the next one. Side note, I am really, really surprised at the number of women who are reading my Carson Brand series. I hate to use the word amazing because I think it's beat up, and that's not a word that should be used alone. I think it's an enigma. It is something that, my demographic and any author who writes action thrillers, action adventure, crime novels, you've got primarily a male audience from the age of about 31, 32 into their 60s. And that's who you write for. That's who you sell to. And I think, and this is just by me talking to a few of the females who have read my books, and I try to focus group as much of this as I can, is they say that he's just relatable. And they one of them told me that they felt like that I portray the women in the book accurately, and that it's not. And again, you write for primarily male audience. It is obvious that when somebody reads a book, to some level they put themselves in the place of the main character or whomever they relate to in the book. And so all these guys are going, oh yeah, I mean, what do you love about James Bond? Well, he's tough. He can whip anybody's butt. He's great. He's admired. He's kind of a brigand, but at the same time, he gets it done. And the women absolutely fall all over themselves for this guy. So secretly, no matter who you are, we still love it when a woman finds us attractive. And I know women, we still love it when a man finds it attractive, whatever it may be. So it fulfills that. But with in my book, it's not a bunch of fawning women who just fall over themselves because he's a tough guy. I think that leaves the women behind. And I spent a lot of time in my life talking to women, not about writing, but in general. I was raised by strong women. My mother, my mother, she is the strongest and one of the most intelligent women I know. And she raised 4 kids by herself for many, many years. And when I was 11, she married my stepdad. And, boy, he had his hands full with 4 kids. I'm the eldest of 4. But anyway, my mother was a strong woman. And my grandmother, she raised me also, as did my aunts. And I've got some cousins. And all these women, they had a hand in raising Craig. I'll tell you, I'm not sure how many times I've been told they're going to snatch me bald-headed and that I was being ornery. And Craig, what are you plotting? I can see right now there's mischief, and I promise you it's not going to go well. That kind of thing. So I do respect and love women. And of course they're beautiful, and I'm attracted to them. But I love women the way they think. I love how they process life, the decisions they make and why they make it, the workings of a woman's mind, especially today, is something that I am fascinated by, and I think that my books reflect that. And I really endeavor towards realism when it comes to the women in my books, and I believe that's why I've got a woman following, because deep down I think women still admire a guy that can work on things and take care of himself, and can make him feel safe and open doors and that kind of thing. It's not very popular to say, but I believe there's a certain number of women, and I think it's a large number, who still appreciate those attributes, characteristics, and conduct in a man. But I also think that women want to be represented in these books and in these genres where they're given a fair shake, where they go, okay, well, this guy, yeah, he's a tough guy, but honestly, he's kind of a dick, and I don't think that I'd ever have anything to do with him. And there are women that come in contact with Carson Brand that look at him that way and have nothing to do with him. Carson Brand also is a guy, he's a hero who is deeply flawed. He has the same issues that most men have, and he has the same fears that most people have, and they're brought up in the book, and he has to deal with them, just like we as human beings have to deal with our failings and our flaws and our fears and our shortcomings and our insecurities. He has all that, and I try to include that in the book, not to the point that it becomes pandering or woe is me. I don't want to do that, but I think just enough that we all do it, and that's why I believe that I've got a pretty good female readership on my book. So again, you ladies out there, I would encourage you to pick up a copy and see what you think. I'd like to hear from you. But going back to word count, and this is the last I'm going to say about it. The reason I reference word count is not because I'm trying to pad this book and make it the thickness of War and Peace or Soldier of the Great War, which is a great book. I enjoy that. But so that I use the word count so that you know that I'm really moving along in this thing. And in a couple months, which it's almost middle of October right now, so in a month and a half, I'm a third of the way through this novel. Typically, I put out one of these novels about one every 8 months, and so I've said that to say this. I'm excited about this book, and the reason I'm excited about it is because it's a complete departure from what I have done so far with the other 3 novels. Like I said, the other 3 novels, spy stuff. It's it's interesting. I've enjoyed them. I think they're good books. This one, I'm going down a completely different road because I wanted to add some texture to it. I've been reading Robert B. Parker's series. What is it? Virgil Cole and Everett Hitch. It's a Western. I'm a Western reader too. these two guys, and if you've ever seen the movie Appaloosa, Viggo Mortensen and Ed Harris were in that. Those, and what's her name? Renee Zellweger. She was in it, but that's the movie. That was the pilot book of that series. Those two guys. And anyway, so I've read 2 or 3 more of them, and I'm enjoying them. They're formulaic. I like the interplay and the relationship and the conversation between the two. I think they tend to do the same thing in every book. And again, I'm only in number 3 or 4. But I'm starting to see, there's not a whole lot of arcing to these characters. They're pretty much doing the same thing all the time. And there are a lot of us as readers that buy into that because it's a very familiar thing. When I go to McDonald's, if I ever go, I want it to look the same as every other McDonald's I go to. I want the food to taste the same. I want those French fries to be exactly how they are. I want that ketchup to taste the same, and I want to have the same experience. And that's the reason that franchise restaurants are successful. Well, franchise books are no different. There are a lot of people that, when they write, these authors write, they want the same thing over and over and over because that's what their audience demands and that's what their readership demands. And I haven't had that demand put on me, so I've got a lot of latitude to arc my characters the way I want to. Carson Brand, I take the risk when I change things around in my novels that, number one, I run out of things to say. Because if I go back to being formulaic after being varied and diverse, that could be construed as boring. Because then the readership that I've earned through that, they're looking for that. They're looking for that diversity. They're looking for that change. They're looking for the variety. And if I don't provide that, then I could lose them. And I value my readers. You readers, I value you very much, and I appreciate you, and I want to keep you around. So that's why I work at trying to get it done. And that's with this book. It's quite the departure from what I've done before. There's a little more mystery to it. It's a little darker. There's not all these political and crime syndicate things going on. It's something that's a little closer to home. And anyway, I'm enjoying writing it. I hope you're going to enjoy reading it, and I'll keep you informed as to what's going on. And I apologize, I'm a little stopped up. I've got whenever there's a change of season, I get allergies, and it's the only time. Middle of summer, I'm good, but usually the fall and the spring, boy, they whip me. I spend all my time blowing my nose and look like I'm in tears, and sometimes I am. I have good days. Other days I weep. I get it, but anyway, this one, I'm really excited about it, and especially if you join my readers group, I'll be able to pass that along to you and let you know exactly when that book's going to come out. Just as a little household or housekeeping information, if you look for my books, Amazon is not the only place for you to find digital books and books online. I recommend that you check out Kobo, Kobo, Draft to Digital. They're good. I do have a distributor, and they send off to a lot of these folks, and of course Apple Books, Google. I mean, there are a lot of them out there, and I encourage you to check those out. If you're in Canada, Indigo is one, and they carry my books up there. They don't have any in print. Barnes & Noble here in the States, there are many stores, particularly in Texas, that do have my print books, but you can get the digital and the ebooks anywhere. And most of these, I put original copies up, so if you order them, they're easy to get. And even if you order the print books, for instance, Barnes & Noble Press, they do print my books. So if you order from Barnes & Noble, they'll print you one up. You don't have to wait 3-4 weeks to get that book. It'll be there in a couple days. And anyway, I'm working to get my platform such that I can get I can get more books out there quickly, and you can buy off my website, and I'm looking at putting a bookstore together on that. So things are changing, things are growing, and I'm trying to keep up, and it is difficult. I'm fairly techie, but not that techie. Anyway, last thing is, if you've enjoyed this podcast, please, as I mentioned, give it a like, follow me there. If you want to check out some of my articles on my blog site, it is craigrainey.info, or just look up Craig Rainey Magazine, and you'll find it there on search engines. I've also got a remodeling and I've got a construction background, of course. That's why Carson Brand has a construction background. You write about what you know, right? Anyway, Remodeling Wisdom from the Expert. That's another podcast and blog site that I have, completely separate from my author platform, but it's something that I don't know. I've really got a lot of followers on that too. But if reading is what you're into and authors and everything else, just stick with the Craig Rainey stuff because I'm here, and I very much appreciate you, y'all. Please again hit that like button and come back and see me again. Bye.